Welcome everyone to episode 5.1 of Retro Encounter, where we'll be talking about Terranigma. With me is a great cast, Davi Tesnovich,
Hey everybody, I'm Davi Tesnovich, Davi Kazi on the boards.
Peter Triezenberg,
Hi, I have Fury on the boards.
and making his Retro Encounter debut, Jesse Wu.
Hi, Jesse. You got my last name right, so congratulations. And I'm the Superdog on the boards. I actually was on the 0 episode of Retro Encounter, and
Oh, that's right.
yeah, I'm finally back.
I'm taking it back. This isn't your debut anymore. You're old news. And then last, I guess, is me. I'm Josh Curry, JD Curry on the boards. Probably all sick of my voice at this point, since I've been on all of them. But yeah, we're not here to talk about us. We're here to talk about Terranigma, our oldest game that we've played thus far on the podcast, which you can definitely tell by looking at it. It's a little different than what we've been playing lately. Let's start off with, what is everybody's experience with this game? I think, for the most part, all of us are new to it, correct?
Yep, this is my first time playing through it.
Same. I had never even heard of it before.
I played and beat this game once a couple years ago, so it's all pretty foggy to me, but it's got some really memorable moments that stuck with me too.
And if I remember correctly, I think, Davey, you were the person that pushed for this game originally, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I have a kind of a connection with this series, which is the I know I mentioned before the Quintet Heaven and Earth action RPG trilogy for the SNES. But when I was a kid, back before my dad died, he got me Illusion of Gaia on the SNES. And it was one of those games that I would never really get too far in because I was a little kid and it was kind of hard. But I'd always go back to it year after year until I finally beat it. And just to a lot of things, like the vocabulary in that game, like the way your actions represent your character's motivation and the overall plot arc. It's really weird. Yeah, it's good stuff.
So is that kind of the reason you went back to, or you came to Terranigma a couple years ago?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I like Jesse. I had never heard of this, and I don't think it's ever been recorded, but I actually take great joy in trying to pronounce the game as wrongly as possible, as consistently as possible. So it's kind of been like a running joke, so that it was kind of funny that it's like, oh yeah, hey, we're gonna do this game too. I'm like, oh, I have to learn how to pronounce this.
You could just try mispronouncing it different ways throughout the entire show. See how long you can keep it going.
It is surprisingly difficult to be creative every time.
Yeah, it is.
So
we could play the survival horror spin-off, Terranigma.
That sounds like you said the exact same thing of the game that we're playing. See, I don't know, maybe my ear didn't hear that right, but that sounded like the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I heard it, Davey.
Not wrong. Well, thanks.
That makes you feel better.
So we'll start with you, Davey, since you've already played it. How does this match up with what you remember of the game?
Well, I do remember the beginning being super, one of my favorite parts. The beginning and the end of this game, I feel like were my favorite parts. So, it's definitely hit me again, the way I want it to. And in that same way, the combat system, you have a lot of verbs at your disposal, or kind of a lot. And as you go on, you kind of get used to them, and it kind of falls flat. But at the beginning, it's really fun to explore those verbs. So,
Did you say verbs?
Verbs, yeah.
Like action verbs?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I never heard that either, but it's not that funny.
It's more funny because I can just picture Davey shaking his head at me right now.
I literally did, yeah.
So, what about you, Jesse? What are your kind of initial reaction to the game?
Well, I didn't know that it was an action RPG. So finding that out, like when I first found out you could jump, I'm like, oh, that's weird, particularly for a game of this era.
Yeah, the jump blew my mind. I did not expect that.
Yeah.
And the first time that you climb on a rope,
yeah, exactly.
or a chain, it was just like this doesn't seem like this belongs in this game.
Yeah, you have a lot of sort of freedom of movement that I was not expecting. Sorry, Davey, you were going to say something?
Oh, sure. No, I was just going to say, and the jump is cool, the way it interacts with your attack, too. Like, the way you have a different neutral jump attack and running jump attack. Like, it's really versatile.
Yeah. More verbs.
Yeah. There's just a series of verbs available to you at all times.
You have an expansive vocabulary.
And verbs was the go-to word.
That's a real thing that you can say about video games, guys.
I mean, I believe you.
It's new to me.
Yeah.
That's why you're in charge of music.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah. Moving on. What about you, Peter?
Well, I had heard of this game before. It never got a U.S. release, so I never played it until now. And I'd watched Clan of the Grey Wolves videos on it, so I was familiar that I knew it was an action RPG. I knew it had kind of some interesting, like, world building elements. But other than that, I hadn't had any real experience with it before now.
Yeah, I'm kind of the combination of both Jesse and Peter. I had no idea in large degrees of what the game was expecting, and I did not actually expect it to be anything like this.
What were you expecting?
So, legitimately, the first little blue ball thing that you come up to, little beetle thing,
yeah,
I repeatedly walked into it.
I did that too!
So I was like, why is this screen not blurring out and I'm not going to a battle system? Like, what is going on? And then I walked into it and I was like, well, this health keeps coming down. Like, this is really stupid.
Yeah.
And then you'd gone through the whole tutorial about like unlocking, like equipping a weapon. It's like, well, that's stupid. Like maybe they're not gonna let me go into a battle system because I don't have my weapon equipped. So I jump in my little box. I'm like, pretty sure this already equipped. They're like, no, apparently not. Okay. Jump back out and walk against it like 4 more times. And I was like, oh, this is a bad start.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so that was really confused because I had found out that you could jump before that.
Yeah.
So I'm jumping around, but I can't start a battle. I was like, this is probably a little bit more actually than I originally expected. So yeah, a very embarrassing start to the game for me.
You know, we're talking about doing even though we're talking about doing a Christmas episode, we should do like an episode where just Josh tries to play random games and we record it.
Me making a jerk of myself.
I would put money down to watch a stream of that for sure.
Since I think every podcast I've been on, like every game, they're like, "Oh yeah, like if you do this, the game's really easy." I'm like, "Wait, what? You can block in this game? What?"
Yeah, I still can't believe you weren't blocking the last story.
Well, actually, I was blocking in this because I had the same problem. I was trying to attack and nothing was happening. I was pressing all the buttons.
And he starts charging up or whatever.
Yeah, he does. I think it's a block, and I'm like, okay, well, do I need? Like, I tried to stand, I positioned myself in front of the enemy and like block so he would come into me. I'm like, this is not a very effective strategy, but it's the only thing that's happening right now.
I just figured out the jumping dash attack thing, and I'm like, wow, that would have made those giant statue enemies so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I accidentally did that against one of the giant statue guys. And that was a nice surprise as well. And that's it. I feel like I'm just kind of fumbling my way through, which has made the beginning of the game really exciting.
Yeah.
Because it is, I mean, definitely, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, the only games I have played in the last 5 months have been the games we've covered on this podcast. And this is such a transition to a completely different type of game than we've been playing. So just in and of itself, that makes it fresh for me. And then also this being something I had zero idea even existed. It naturally just has no baggage attached to it. So I'm kind of coming in completely blind.
So you thought it was just going to be a super short turn-based RPG, like a Dragon Quest clone?
Yeah.
Wow.
And even the
That's
art
awesome.
kind of looks like it too.
Yeah, and to be honest, your character sprite doesn't really give you any distinct impressions. He doesn't look
looks
like he's
like
ready to
Chrono.
fight anybody. I guess a little bit, yeah.
See, I immediately once he gets like woken up at the beginning, and then they're like, "Oh, you destroyed the Weavers by riding on a chicken back or something." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And the first thing that went through my head was Naruto,
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
because he's kind of like this like hoodlum kid almost that
Yeah.
people seem to think like he keeps talking about being a hero, and that's why like they make you break down the door. And so that's what kept going through my head is like he kind of has this girl that they have this weird thing. He's kind of he seems like he's a hero, but he destroys everything. And it's kind of his fault, so this is where the story goes. So that's what kept going through my mind. So I pictured like a younger kid,
Right.
and then he looks like a little Goku. So
Yeah, a little Goku. I guess Chrono would also look like a little Goku.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're all in that same general family of Gokus.
Of little Gokus.
Of the 5 different faces Toriyama can draw.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you
and,
go.
but yeah, because of specifically the art style, that made me assume that it was more of some sort of turn-based RPG.
Okay, so can I ask, since you guys haven't played Terranigma, I was wondering if you guys have played any other Quintet games, which I do have to correct myself from, I think, last episode. They did do ActRaiser and ActRaiser 2 and RoboTrek, as well as this trilogy.
Awesome.
So,
That means nothing to me, but
Dead
awesome.
silence.
so when I saw Quintet, I thought Quinjet, like the Avengers airplane.
I love the world you live in, Josh Curry.
So I think that's a nice assumption of no.
Okay.
I had played a little bit of ActRaiser and RoboTrek before, and so I was familiar with the company, but not terribly extensive.
Those are hella good games.
They are really good. Like I was saying before the show, RoboTrek was Pokemon before Pokemon was a thing.
Yeah, and I'm aware of those games, but I never would have known specifically ActRaiser. Like I know ActRaiser, but I never would have known that was by them. I never would have put that together.
I didn't know until I just looked it up for the show. Like, I love ActRaiser and these games, and I get how they're very similar, but I didn't realize it was legitimately the same developer. It looks like they also did a Godzilla game, and I feel kind of bad for them.
I kind of feel bad that we're not playing Godzilla right now.
Godzilla Generations, Maximum Impact.
First boss Mothra.
That sounds great.
You guys are into the giant monster thing?
I love Godzilla.
No.
What?
Gojira. Sorry.
I love the idea of Godzilla. I've actually never seen a Godzilla movie.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite, I guess Godzilla movie wouldn't even be Godzilla, but it would be whatever that movie that came out like 2 years ago.
Pacific Rim?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That movie
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah, I heard that was a
Killer
secret
soundtrack.
kaiju movie.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. But let's
Moving
turn
on.
this back around. Yeah. So that's kind of everybody's impressions. This is a weird game.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of weird kind of original things, but also just weird.
How did you feel the first time you stepped out of the village and the world map just looks like a nightmare world?
I was pretty sure I dropped acid.
Right?
That was originally I think I was eating like something. And I immediately looked down at my hand and I was like, what am I eating? Like, is this spoiled? Was there something in this? Yeah, that was odd. I don't fully get why that is.
Yeah, well, the opening cinematic doesn't help really at all.
Yeah, with the clock and just can repeat talking about lights and darks and
It's very cryptic.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated to see where this game goes, because there is so many questions. I mean, even in the intro, at some point it looked like there was like a Wright brothers plane,
Yeah.
and it's like that. No matter what game this is, that doesn't seem to fit. And then you start talking about like, well, they're in a town, they have a gate that has locked them off into a small town.
Yeah.
Which now, after he leaves, I understand why nobody's supposed to leave town. That's terrifying.
Lava everywhere.
Yeah. And then you have this weird like acid trip background, and then there's 5 towers, and there's just so much weirdness to it. I'm very interested to see what they do with all of this.
Right. Well, even in the town, there's these blue crystal things that people address, and you don't know, but that they don't really explain what they are. They're just kind of there.
Well, they say that you can like see people living their lives if you look into them. They're like a window.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
But
it's an interesting game.
I gotta say, for what amounts to like a Zelda clone, there's some fairly ambitious concepts at work here.
yeah, definitely.
So I actually want to talk about it. Do you guys think it's fair to call this a Zelda clone?
I think it's fair, although it's not. Even though the game's not exactly like Zelda per se, it's still a top-down action RPG where you explore dungeons, and that may be too general to make it like exactly like Zelda, because the puzzles, what puzzles there have been, haven't been terribly complicated yet.
Right.
But that's just the impression it gives me.
Yeah, it's more combat focused, and I think it would literally fall into the genre of Zelda-like.
So one of the questions I have then is, and I just happen to not do this, is there a way to go in the towers in a not specific order?
No.
So like you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Yeah, because I just naturally just showed up at the right tower.
Mhm.
Right.
Which is really surprising for me, because I almost always get lost in these games.
I tried to explore the overworld a little bit. I think the way it's laid out is that you pretty much have to come across the towers in the right order.
Okay.
Like it looks like there are more ways you can go, but in actuality you're gonna run into like a river of lava that it won't let you pass or something.
Okay, yeah, because looking at it, it gives the impression that it's much bigger than it is. I'm not sure if that's like the curving of the screen.
Yeah, that's a bit, I think.
Yeah, you actually come, like, if you go north, you'll come around, and the world will sort of refresh pretty quickly.
Oh, really? You can wrap around the map?
Well, you can't, like, actually go, but you can see, like, where your village is.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah,
Cool.
I wasn't sure about that.
But it doesn't seem, at least from the tower, like, I don't know if you can actually change up the order, but it's not like you acquire anything in the towers that you need for subsequent dungeons, at least not yet, right? So in that way, it's very different from Zelda.
And that's kind of where I was getting to, is I feel like Zelda has a very rote, you need to go X, Y, Z, and at X you need this weapon, at Y you need this, which you're going to get during X. And there's a very, you have to have certain items, and you have to find those. And I know we're very early in the game, but that hasn't occurred yet. So that's where I'm like, I don't really fully feel like it's a Zelda game.
Well, that's especially true if you consider that the kind of format of progression, because later on, like, it becomes a little more of an open world game, and like you'll have access to like a number of towns that you can like try to develop concurrently with each other. So it's definitely not like a linear progression like Zelda is.
That sounds exciting then. I like the sound of that. So you're basically saying that Terranigma was able to do what Zelda's trying to do in 2016.
A lot of well, a lot of people do hold this up as like one of the tops of the Zelda-like genre. That's not actually Zelda, and I kind of have to agree with that. I like this more than like Ys, for example.
So
See, I don't put East. I wouldn't put East and Zelda in the same category, but that's just me. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being inconsistent with my claims here.
That's crazy. Like the first East games like looked like just like Zelda games. I mean, they played different, but
Yeah, that's the thing. I haven't played the first East game. I have is Salsetta.
oh, okay. Well, yeah, their identity changed a lot later on, so that's fair.
Yeah.
So, Davey, you'll enjoy this. I've been thinking about Zelda a lot lately.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
well,
Sorry.
maybe I was thinking of ways to piss you off more. I don't know. But
That's okay.
I've gone on record before saying that the best Zelda game ever was Darksiders.
Okay.
I like that game.
So I was thinking about recently, and I think my second favorite Zelda game would be Batman Arkham
What?
Asylum.
Actually, I can kind of see that.
You can't see me gritting my teeth right now.
First of all, that game is fantastic, no matter what you say about it being a Zelda game or not. And it kind of ties with this Terranigma, but there's a loose enough function of there is places you can go, but you need certain tools to be able to advance. And you could also argue that maybe it's more of like a Metroidvania game. But
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you're going to put it in that Zelda kind of grouping, I feel like that's one of the better Zelda games. So, but we can stop talking about Zelda.
Now I'm trying to think of what my outrageous favorite Zelda game is that's not actually Zelda.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna take the easy way out and say Okami.
And I agree. That would be in my top 3 of Zelda games.
Actually, I'd probably say
I
Brandish.
do like. Oh, never played that one.
Oh my god. Brandish. There's a reason every time I type Brandish, I always do it in all caps.
I thought it was just spelled that way.
No.
Oh. That's another
No,
game I've never heard of.
It's so good.
So everybody,
Didn't that just come out like the PSP version or whatever?
Yeah, the PSP port just came out like within the past year.
so everybody's talking about everything but this. But Jesse, I need to hear what your favorite Zelda game is.
Favorite Zelda game? I mean, favorite real Zelda? I mean, I think Zelda stands just as a genre of its own. I don't really see the point in this exercise in saying like, well, this thing is also a Zelda game, and this like Zelda is just Zelda to me. But I really like Okami, so
Yeah.
Can't go the easy way out. Okay.
yeah.
All right. But so yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see how Terranigma progresses because I can see where the original Zelda, where you're kind of in that town, you're wandering around. They don't give you instructions of how everything is done, and so you kind of have to figure it out. So you have to figure out, oh, if I cut this bush, it disappears, or there might be a coin in it. And there's some trappings of that are similar. But largely thus far, I have not felt like it was a Zelda game.
Right.
Maybe it's because it has really bad conveyance, and it doesn't really convey what you need to do well the way the Zelda game does.
Yeah, they definitely put the enigma in Terranigma in that way.
I like it.
That's awesome.
But like that tutorial where they're teaching you, where the little what's his face, the little guy.
Moo? Zumu?
Yeah, him.
Is his name Moo?
Zabumafu?
Zoom. Oh, we should have. Why can't we ever pronounce anybody's name right?
It's okay, man.
I don't know. I'm just
So the
I'm
little
just
guy that lives in your box.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds
The
so
Wisp
dirty.
from Sonic Colors.
Oh, what?
The Wisp from Sonic Colors. That's what he is.
Let's take your words for
Canon
that.
now. But like that tutorial is just like, okay, and here's this thing you can do. You got it? No? Great. And here's this other thing you can do. You got that? No? Oh, too bad. Okay, here's this other thing you can do. It just goes through like all the game systems like at like rapid speed, and I'm just like, can you let me practice?
See, and I actually was very happy about that because a lot of tutorials just can stretch on forever. And so I liked that it was like boom, 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 boom. The only terrible thing I thought was, and that was kind of what screwed me up when, like we were explaining with the blue ball. It says, "Oh, you need to equip this weapon," and it was doing everything else. Why didn't he equip the weapon for me?
Yeah, that was a little weird.
But other than that, I actually enjoyed that he or she, the ball, which is Yomi. I looked it up. Yomi.
Yomi, you're right.
Yomi was so like
Yomi
to the point. Boom, boom, boom. You can just move on to the game and enjoy the game. So I actually respected that about it.
I don't mind the brevity so much as I just wish they'd been a little clearer.
That's
Like,
true.
it's pretty much just like, here's a...
Sorry, go ahead.
Like, here's a thing you can... It says, like, here's a thing you can do, but won't explain really how to do it. Or why you need to do it. Like, and I'm still trying to figure out, like, why Magirocks are important.
I completely agree. I was going to say that, too.
Like, I know they're for the game's magic system, but they don't tell me anything beyond that. I'm just like, so, like, do I eat them?
Take them to the magic shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest problem with that was that they didn't tell you that it was basically just a menu, right? Like, I thought I was gonna go into the box and have to actually walk around and, you know, pick up the thing and put it in the hole. This is getting really, you know, anyways, but right, put the spear in the hole. No, so it really just amounts to like a different way of doing a menu, which is fine. But if you don't know that, it's just confusing.
Yeah, I could see it that way. I think it's, on one hand, I think it's really cool that they kind of try to incorporate the menu kind of into the canon setting of the game in a weird way, like kind of a fourth wall breaking kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's not the best menu, so I don't have like a great deal of affection for it. And like super later on, there'll be times when you have to change equipment or do something, like I can't remember specifically, but like you spend a lot of time in there and it can be kind of annoying.
Yeah, I agree. It's great that it builds into the narrative, but the number one consideration for a menu should be like working as a menu, you know, like utility.
Yeah, I always feel like the best menu is a menu that you almost don't even realize that it's good because you use it so efficiently.
Yep, definitely.
So it can be so exterior in the background that it's like, oh yeah, there was a menu. I did stuff, but it's successful because it never gets to the point that it's annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see, like, it's a cool idea. And I like that they tried to do something different, but I could see in the long run this being very annoying. And like they're like, oh, you pick up the item, you throw it in the hole to get rid of it, and it'll be recycled. And it's like, there's so many easier ways to do that.
Yeah. Although I feel like in terms of just chapter 1, in the way that they're just trying to build upon like the enigma of this setting and the enigma of like the genesis of this world.
I feel like there should be a drinking game for every time you say enigma.
All right. It's not healthy, but I feel like everything they're doing, like with the dimension box and with the like weird blurring on the world map, like all that stuff is just like to try to get that weird feeling from the player. That's really the opposite of what Zelda always tries to do, which is to show you like the path you need to walk on to beat the game.
In fairness, the original Zelda didn't do that.
No, you're right, and that's the best Zelda.
I thought we agreed that Darksiders was the best Zelda.
The best Zelda with the name Zelda.
No, and
Just Wind Waker, Davi.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things like you can definitely see the age in that. Yeah. Like my childhood was always video games. Like you just banged your head against a wall, but you were so young that you didn't know better, so you'd spend hours doing something, and
be fine with it.
Yeah, right. Be fine with it, and you'd be willing to go through all sorts of hell to be able to do it. And then you'd come back and play it a second time because now it's fun, because now I know what to do. And I can see some of that trappings here where it's like there is ambiguity to it. Ooh, there's a word to it.
Ambiguity.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I mean, that was actually a feature of like older game design, right? Like make it really hard, make it so you can't figure it out, so the game would last longer and you wouldn't have to put more content in.
Yep.
And that's kind of a carryover from arcades too, where they were trying to get you to put more money in the machine.
Yeah. and I can definitely see that where it doesn't hold your hand. And I think back then we expected more from the player.
Yeah.
Both we were saying with the conceits of we wanted to stretch out longer, but then also everything else. I feel like video games just as a whole were so much harder, and I can definitely see that in this, and that's the most interesting step, going from the last story, which is only a couple years old, and it is much more handholdy. It's that new game design, and then switching to this, where this is classic game design. This is the Super Nintendo. Like this is life breaking. Like this was used to make sorrow in your life. Like this could be really hard, and I can already see where like there's parts of this game I would not be surprised that gets very, very difficult.
Yeah, maybe. I don't really remember that specifically. I also remember last time, I don't know if I'm going to do this time, but last time I like 100% of the game. Like I got all my towns up to like full development and stuff, and did all the side quests and whatnot. So maybe I was like OP. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Ooh, speaking of which, I am happy there is a leveling system.
Yeah, that's why, like you said, you could definitely make a case for this being more of a Metroid type game than a Zelda type game, because there is like, well, Metroidvania with leveling, I guess.
Yeah.
Man, those terms just are bad for describing games in general.
I think you want Igavania. I think that's the new term for it.
I think I want RPG. I think it's got like more RPG elements that make it not feel like Zelda, which is like.
Actually, you know what game it kind of reminds me of now that I think about it?
Huh.
Dark Cloud, the original Dark Cloud. Because
you know what?
That was
that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just. Well, I was to say that was a game that was, when it was first coming out, it was touted as being like Sony's Zelda killer or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, industry hyperbole, blah 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 blah. But then when you actually play it, it's more focused. It's way more focused on the town building stuff, and it's a lot of fun. But I wouldn't really compare it to Zelda and beyond anything other than the protagonist is kind of green.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna say I'm really happy you brought that up. Like that's a really good line to draw between these games and like a slightly more modern games. It's Dark Cloud. It's really astute.
Mm-hmm.
Dark Cloud was always a game I desperately wanted to play.
It's so good.
Yeah. I'm very disappointed that I missed Dark Cloud 1 and 2.
I don't have my copy anymore. I kind of
awesome.
Next month.
Or
future podcast.
Don't promise anything.
Yeah, he's got to go. Although, if you guys want to see us play Dark Cloud, write in and tell us about it. Like, tell us you want to see Dark Cloud. We will do that.
No, don't do that.
Well, Josh.
Shut up, Josh.
Josh.
We encourage this.
Put it in. Yeah, sure. Whatever. Yeah, I'm. I guess to give my general impression, I'm really enjoying the game thus far. Because it has been a series of just surprises. I know it sounds really stupid, and I saw the level 1 sitting up in the top corner, but you don't have that I don't remember any like experience popping off when you kill people.
No, it doesn't.
And so I was like, oh, we're in the tutorial, like nothing's going to happen. This must be like tied to, like, I complete this tower, I gain a level, or I complete this side quest, I'm gonna gain a level. And so all of a sudden I was like, oh, level 2, and then the guy gives his like little like, yeah. And I was like, this is awesome. Okay.
The game really wants you to know what stats are getting increased, though, because that level up takes like a full minute before it's done.
I love that, though. I want to know I'm stronger.
To be fair, it is more satisfying if you pay attention, because it's usually like by 1 or 2. So when you get 2, you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. So that again is just one of those things that's like coming in with a certain impression about the game and having almost all of those kind of be completely different. It's been an enjoyable experience thus far.
I can't stop laughing every time I think about you just walking into like what you assume is a Dragon Quest slime. Be like, all right, let's fight.
Yeah.
What's going on, man? What's up?
Let's fight.
I almost died in my first encounter. That would have really sucked. I don't think you guys would have ever let me live that down.
It's okay. I didn't say
We're barely going to let you live this down.
If this is the worst that pisses people off, and that's the reason they want me to be no longer on the podcast, then they haven't been listening hard enough to what I say typically.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've already insulted, like, everyone's favorite games.
I try.
Oh.
But actually, it's nice that your health will regenerate, over time. Like, when you figure out what you need to do, it's not a terribly difficult game, at least not yet.
No.
Yeah.
You can easily run away from anybody that you're fighting, basically.
Yeah.
And then is the health tied to seconds or is it tied to steps?
I don't know.
I think it's tied to seconds, but yeah, don't quote me on that.
Because I was kind of always in a state of motion,
Yeah.
and
Well,
it seemed like maybe it went a little faster if you were in motion. I don't know.
That's I guess that's kind of this game's strength, is like you're always moving, you're always like ready to attack, and it doesn't play like Zelda at all, like in that way. Like you're always on the move, jumping and sliding and like doing all sorts of weird stuff.
Like climbing
Yeah,
up the
very
side of a
fast-paced.
tower.
Yeah, that tower was so cool looking. Like on the outside, it looked like you were climbing Magus's tower.
But again, it screwed me up because I could not find where that window was. I went back down to the first floor, I went to the second floor, and I was like, alright. So, we'll just say that this game overall has been very embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
had
been a
trouble with
good
the window, too.
go of things, yeah. But yeah, once I figured out, I was like, oh, that makes much more sense. Yeah.
Oh boy.
What?
No, nothing. So, how'd you guys feel about the like the weird little scenes you get when you clear a tower? Like, what do you think those are trying to communicate to you? Because this game does like
Pretty trippy.
almost like they are pretty trippy. Everything in this game is pretty trippy. But this game kind of does like the Dark Souls thing, of, like show don't tell. Like they'll rarely tell you about what's going on, but they'll give you like a weird, really pretty, like pixel piece of art to look at, and they'll be like, stuff happened. Think about it, man.
So I didn't actually feel like the end of the towers were that confusing because you're just unlocking the world, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, here's this weird green blob. Let's stare at it for a couple seconds. Oh, that's a part of the world.
Oh yeah, in the end, it's the continent coming back. That's right.
They say you've unlocked Eurasia.
Yeah, you're building a world again. Which it opens more questions than it gives any sort of answers.
Because you don't step out the door and like show up in Africa.
Sure.
Like where is this Africa you're speaking of?
Right.
Well, the bigger thing is, where are you in that town? Like, where does that exist?
I think it's
so abstracted.
It's like beneath the surface of the earth, right? At least that's what it seems like.
Yeah. I think that's what we're supposed to assume.
That's weird.
Which then I got like this weird, almost like Fallout vibe, or like any of those like kind of post-apocalyptic worlds where the world was destroyed, so we had to go into a bunker, and we've just kind of stayed here because everything's screwed up there. And then, oddly enough, if you open a box, you can rebuild the world. We'll not touch on that, but it seems like they've almost like hunkered down and just like, we're gonna be here where we're safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, though, that brings up the questions of like, why was the world above destroyed? Why does this box fix it? Like, there's a lot there that kind of remains unanswered.
Yeah, Breath of Fire 5 did that too, where it was like all of the world above is screwed up, so all of humanity had to like move underground, and it kind of left you hanging, wondering why.
I just want to hug you every time you bring that game up.
Okay, I'm gonna steal Josh's thunder and piss off all of our listeners for myself. Breath of Fire 5 is the only good Breath of Fire game.
Thank you.
I have to agree with you as well.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna.
That is hands down the best one.
It's so good.
It's
okay.
It's
That's fine.
Series, so everyone hates it, but it's so good.
That's fine to say that it's good, but not that it's the only good one.
Okay, maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic, but
I'd say it's the only great one.
It's the only one worth playing.
Breath of Fire's 1 through 4 are fine.
Yep, that's exactly
Traditional
how I put
RPGs. Traditional RPGs with one kind of interesting hook with the dragon transformations.
Yep.
That is not true at all.
Okay.
Well, to each their own, I guess.
I'm just maybe not for like the era, but trying to go back and play some of those old Breath of Fire games, like they don't wear their age as well as some RPGs of that vintage do.
I played Breath of Fire 3 like 2 years ago. It was great. It was amazing.
That was 2 years ago though.
Yeah, that's a pretty long time.
I played the first one. I played it originally like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When Peter was just a wee child. I'm gonna throw that out, Peter.
Peter was probably still in middle school.
Ad hominem attack on Peter.
I was 11. Thank you.
Which I guess is you bring up a good compliment to Terranigma is I actually think it's aged pretty well.
Yeah.
Some of the cutscenes are a little weird.
I like it.
Bro, I actually think it's aged pretty decently.
It kind of gives me like a Stanley Kubrick vibe.
In what way?
That really kind of like trippy, out there atmosphere.
Yeah. Like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, hey, check out this weird stuff, dude. Think about it.
I think that's the other reason that I was thrown by this game, because I'm pretty sure you sold this game as a steampunk game to me.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Mark was talking about Steambot Chronicles.
No, I think that was you. So, to wake up to little Goku, I was like, this is not steampunk.
Are you talking about how you end up helping out like Benjamin Franklin and Alexander Graham Bell and the Wright brothers?
No.
Because all of that happens in this game you guys are playing right now.
Wait, what?
I swear, yeah, that's a real thing. Like, you help like found New York and stuff.
I'm calling BS on all of this.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
There's not many RPGs that take place in like the real world.
Yeah, on Earth.
Like our world.
And they call it Earth.
Yeah.
That's honestly one of the reasons I think The World Ends With You is one of the best RPGs of the last couple of years.
I still need
That's
to beat
one.
that.
I haven't played that one. I want to.
Because it's so easy for the knee-jerk reaction to be like, this is a high fantasy or this is low fantasy, but it's always fantasy. There's some sort of elves, there's some sort of magic, which just has magic because of the little rock things. But to have it grounded in something that you can relate to, I think in some ways that's almost why Final Fantasy VII has such a staying power, is it's a little bit more grounded in something that you can understand.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so I do agree. I think it's interesting to have it on Earth, that you're rebuilding places that you can recognize.
Dude, Illusion of Gaia is like that too. Like, you'll go to different wonders of the world, and it'll be like a weird, like cultish or philosophical explanation behind that place. Like, you'll go to the like Easter Island statues and like the Nazca lines, and from the Nazca lines you like flip onto this weird upside down platform in the sky that's invisible from the ground. Like,
You lost me there.
dude, this whole series is hella weird, and like number 2, Illusion of Gaia, is kind of just about exploring the wonders of the world, and like it's also about the separation of Pangaea. But
Pangea?
Yeah, it's Pangea.
Is it okay, Pangea?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Retro Encounter can speak the words.
Thank you, Jesse.
And then Soul Blazer, you're like specifically, if I remember correctly, the disciple of a god, and like he sends you down like, hey, I have to rebuild this world. Go collect some souls and turn them into organisms, or not even organisms, just like things. You'll like kill a room of guys, and they'll be like, you unlock the soul of a house, and then there's a house inside.
Okay, the soul of a house.
What?
I guess that's sort of like Shinto, so everything has a soul.
Yeah.
One of the things that actually really disappointed me was that, they say that all the monsters in the towers are like the souls of people that became corrupted, and once you defeat them, they'll become human again. So I actually went back to the first tower after I beat it, like expecting to see people.
Oh.
They weren't. They were still monsters.
I didn't.
Cool.
That'd been super cool. I didn't interpret it that way. I interpreted it as by killing them, you were unfreezing the people that were back in the town, like they were regaining their souls. And that's why, like, people, what you like slowly unfreeze that town.
Oh, okay.
That's how I agree. Like that, I was disappointed in the regard. I was hoping that everybody that you killed would pop out a little bubble.
Yeah.
That would have been cool.
But yeah, that's kind of how I interpreted it. Was that's why you're unfreezing people, is because you're regaining their souls, and they've lost their souls, and that's why there's monsters there. And by killing them, you're releasing it.
I like how that kind of afterlife thing kind of reflects how it works in Final Fantasy X as well. Like that's kind of how fiends work.
Yeah, it's almost exactly.
Yeah.
And that kind of also ties together, like, I think one of the Weavers specifically says this, where if you go and talk to everybody, one of them was like, I don't know why, because I don't remember anything, but I know that you saved me.
Oh yeah, that's Elle. That's your girlfriend or whatever.
Elle? Yeah. And so that was kind of one of those things that was like, oh, that there was... That kind of came through by you killing them, like they were able to see that, perceive it.
Like some sort of consciousness.
Yeah, they're aware of your actions because of that. So
this game does some weird implications.
Yeah.
It seems as plausible as anything else that's happening in the game.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of disappointed that my girlfriend's a little blue rock that's been rolling around, but sure. Yeah.
Hey, it's we're not normative. Okay.
Yeah. Check your privilege.
And I know, Davey, since we're kind of getting into the weeds of like souls and whatnot, I know you had wanted to discuss how this, at least the early part of the game, kind of reflects the Book of Genesis.
No, yeah, I just like wonder if, well, that's kind of like specifically what you're trying to do, right? Like every time you bring back one of these lands, like you're just trying to like rebuild the earth, and then like I don't know, like I was wondering at first when they started showing those cutscenes, because the first one is just like a mountain, and then the second one is just like a river.
Mhm.
But
So you're saying like day one was the land, day two was...
yeah, but well, first of all, that's not the way that goes. And second of all, I actually forgot about the short segment at the end where it just shows the continent appearing on the map, which honestly, at first I didn't even realize was related. I was like, okay, there's a mountain. Oh, and I guess we have North America now. Cool. Like, I wasn't connecting those two for some reason. So, no, that's I was being insane like usual. So.
I can kind of get what you're saying though, because there is so much talk about light and dark. They literally at the end of the intro say God and either Satan or the devil.
God and the devil, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there definitely is. There's this fight between good and evil, and then you add in the fact that you are recreating the world in essence. So I can see where that's coming from.
I think the two forces are more like creation and destruction than good and evil, because I think it's just about like the existence of life or the absence of life.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of representative of the world you're in, and I think that's why like everything is just like there's nothing alive down there. There's like demons to kill, and nothing else outside of that little tiny village in which there's like 2 dozen people at most. Like, that's just a weird world. Like I said, like, it has some pretty strange implications. And, like, unfortunately, I think for a long time after the first chapter, it takes a while to get back to it because you rebuild, like, the world, like, the entire world from the, like, and it's weird to, like, represent the work of a god in such a way, like, this god had to go to these 5 towers and kill some demons to save some little blue balls.
Wait, so you're saying Ark is a god?
I don't think he's like literally a god in their world, but I think through these actions he's like going to end up doing the work of God.
Right. He sort of represents creation
So he's like-
or something.
He's a prophet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do this because it's on Wikipedia, so I feel like it's fair game at this point. So this really, really confuses me, and now this brings up a really good point. So they kind of talk about exactly what we were talking about, the fight between God and the devil, the antagonism between the two. The conflict culminated in a final battle in Antarctica on the surface world. However, neither of the two forces were victorious. The continents of the surface world submerged into the sea, and the underworld was sealed away. So, if we're going again with saying that... So, are we in hell then? In chapter 1?
Well, we're in the underworld, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think this game is like really going for like Judeo-Christian kind of lore,
Right.
but whatever you would call like the underworld. Wait, so is everyone there dead already?
That's kind of what I'm going with.
Oh.
Whoa.
And then that
So-
goes back to then saying that you truly are rebuilding everything. You're rebuilding civilization because in that fight, the world was lost because it was put into the sea, which we're re-raising the continent, so that makes sense. But since we're not personally under the sea, that means we're in the underworld, so that means that everybody there is dead.
Well, I don't think I think it's like the underworld, like the subterranean world, right? Like
Okay.
at the center
Okay.
of the earth. That's
So
how I
I
interpret
should be
it.
divorcing the underworld from the devil. Those
I
shouldn't
mean-
be considered the same thing.
I'm not gonna try and speak for this story at this point.
The imagery is definitely there, even though that's not what's
Yeah.
literally happening. You can still draw parallels.
Yeah, I guess you could perceive that either as hell or a literal underworld. Like it could represent either of those things.
Yeah.
It's
Hey,
just the way it looks.
if nothing else, I'm really interested to see how all of that plays out. And I think it will. I am guessing this game will not be very heavy-handed with what it's trying to say, so I think it will lead to a very good discussion as well.
Yeah, definitely. The weirdest stuff that it does do some heavy-handed stuff with like the civilization, like the society building.
Mhm.
But as far as like the lore and the core plot development goes, it has a very light touch.
Yeah, and that's actually legitimately what I'm most excited for. Is to
Yeah.
kind of see where some of this more lore goes.
Yeah.
So do we want to talk about where we expect the story to go?
To insanity. We can try. I have to agree with Davey originally that this is basically something that I don't think we will be able to guess. But I am super excited to hear your guys' opinions. So go ahead, Jesse.
I mean, yeah, I don't know that, like, it's kind of a futile exercise, right? Like, everything has sort of defied my expectations. So my only prediction is that it's going to be crazy.
What about you, Peter?
I think you guys have said it. I don't think we can really predict exactly where this whole thing is going to go. I think it's got a really interesting premise, and I'm really curious about where it takes it.
So I have two small ones. I think one of them's super easy. There's so much talk about the fight between the god and the devil. I think a really easy assumption is to say, "Hey, we fight the devil at the end."
I mean, it is a JRPG.
But because I always like throwing these weird twists in there, I would also like for us to kill God in the end.
Yeah.
Because for there to be
Still
evil,
do.
there has to be good, and you could
Yeah.
say that the fight between those two is what put them in the situation that they're currently in. So for you to fully emerge from this and start anew, you need to end that struggle, and for there to be one, the other one has to exist. You have to take both out.
Since I know what happens next, I'm gonna just tell you guys after chapter 1, you go to a mountain and fight some animals because you need to unlock some mammals.
Mammals or animals?
Mammals.
Okay. So you have
Good
to
talk.
build the world more. Something that
actually-
Sorry, Davey, what were you gonna say?
No, I think it might be birds first.
Okay. That makes sense. It should be reptiles
Does it?
and birds. No, it doesn't
Oh,
make
okay,
any
gotcha.
sense at all. But I am curious about how the box is gonna come back into play, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I first thought of, right, is like opening Pandora's box, right? So
Yep.
are we gonna
That
have
was-
to come back, right?
Definitely.
That was exactly what I thought too. But that's kind of ironic because you're supposed to open Pandora's box and it's supposed to lead to destruction. And in this regard, at least at the beginning, it's leading to creation.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
but it's
doesn't
everyone in town.
That's true.
doesn't Yomi mean like darkness or evil or
Yeah.
something in Japanese too?
Yeah, I mean,
Google Translate.
darkness.
Isn't it like ever present or something? I know fighting game players say Yomi when someone makes a call based on a prediction and it works.
Because I might be thinking of Yami.
No, Yomi is a type of demon, I think, but
Yeah.
Blood Rain Curse of the Yomi.
Oh, okay.
Google Translate translated Yomi to Yomi.
Nice.
Yeah, fighting game
Thanks,
players.
Google.
Thanks, Google. That was super helpful. Yeah, it's also kind of with like just symbolism. You're recreating and you're making sure that there's life. I feel like the name Ark, I thought of
Yeah.
was Noah and Noah's
Yeah.
Ark.
That's definitely almost a guarantee that's an intentional choice.
And that really struck me once. Davey's like, "Oh, you're gonna save some birds," and I was like, "Ah, I bet I'm gonna save 2 birds."
But is he Russell Crowe?
Yeah.
This is an important distinction to make.
Russell Crowe will always be a Roman gladiator to me.
See, I watched the Russell Crowe Noah movie very, very recently. That movie is way underrated. It goes places.
I'm not accepting your opinions on other media after what you said about Breath of Fire.
Oh,
Wow.
So if you could just hang up
Russell
now,
Crowe.
Peter, because we can't trust any of your opinions anymore.
Can I just
Well,
ask,
I mean-
what's your favorite Breath of Fire, Jesse?
3. And I've never played 5, so
Oh, so you just
maybe
haven't been
it's the
educated
best
to
one.
the brilliance then.
it could. That's very
Uh.
possible, but I don't think that anything that I would play in it would make me say that 3 is a bad game or that it's.
Did you play 4?
Okay,
I did play
yeah,
4.
I don't think
yeah.
any of them are bad. I just think 5 is the only interesting one.
You said the only good one.
The only one worth playing,
Well-
I think, is the one is what he said.
Anyways,
Good. You said good.
I just want to point out
I'm
that
I'm just
it's-
trying to pull a Josh.
in Spanish, if you take yo, me, it's I, my.
okay.
Okay.
I'm just futzing around with Google Translate now.
Why?
'Cause it's-
I love that this is what your life has become.
Because it's open. So on a completely tangent from that, did you guys change Ark's name?
No.
No, that's just because I stick to the
Yeah,
defaults.
I never do that.
Yeah. I'm very heavily against ever changing anybody's name. So
I would say I think if I did change his name, it would have been something stupid like Mr. P Pants.
quality. Profit,
Thanks.
Mr. P Pants. Has a ring to it.
Doesn't it?
I can't remember. Mike named Titus something in Final Fantasy X. That was
It's something
so.
we probably shouldn't say on.
Yeah, it was so bad that we couldn't even say it on air. which I thought was awesome.
It was really funny though.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things I always feel that if there's some sort of character name that the developers wanted, even if they give me the choice, I always have such a I really, really hate changing the names.
You know, I will say that was one of the things that pissed me off the most when I told you the first time I played the last story I used an undub. They changed like everybody's freaking name in that localization.
Yeah, they did.
That drives me nuts. Like, why? It's a proper noun. Like, I don't even.
Do those nouns do verbs?
Yeah, they slash, then they go into cover.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. I also go to the point that I will actually look up, like if there literally isn't a name for that person, I'll look up and try to find something that developers at one point said.
Oh, yeah, like Persona.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I just use my name then.
If like Skyrim, where there's then I'll put my name, or I'll do like a creative name that would seem to fit for that place.
It also depends if like it's a game where you're literally playing that role. Like if I feel like I'm literally going to be making the decisions and stuff, and then I'll name it my name. But if it's just a character in a story, then they should have their own name. That's weird.
The only exception to that is I only accept Charlie Chinoku as the main character for Persona 4.
What?
Oh man, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it's Giant Bomb did this huge like 100 episode let's play of it, and they called him Charlie. They wanted to call him Charlie Tuna, and they made it more Japanese, so they called him Charlie Chinoku.
Okay.
And that has always stuck with me.
What?
So even though he actually has a real name now, he'll never be you. He's Charlie Chinoku.
Okay.
See, I remember when I played Persona 4 for the first time, and I couldn't fit my whole last name in there, so I just ended up calling my character Peter Treason. So everyone was addressing me as
Kind of a
Treason.
badass way to fucking change your name into a roleplay game. I like that a lot.
It's just one of those things. Most of these worlds, they're living in some sort of underworld right now. If they're like, hey Josh, I'm like, yeah, I feel like Josh doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
It's fair. It's fair.
As always, we've gotten super sidetracked. Why don't we kind of give our closing thoughts, unless anybody has something they wants to talk about.
I just wanna make sure at some time we have Josh Curry plays horrible games stream. Like, I'm not joking about that, Josh.
I feel like at this point you should be able to understand that I can make any game seem like I think it's horrible.
Okay, well that's perfect. We'll have plenty of content.
Yeah, we can start with like Dark Souls, because that's a crappy game. We can move on to like, I don't know. Supposedly Breath of Fire 3 is really terrible too.
I have something about Breath of Fire 3. I have to get this off my chest. I have a sore spot for any game that puts you through an arc where you have to be a child, in which you're just like the normal version of that character, but you're dumb and a child. Like, I hate that. That's never fun to me.
Well, you don't
like
Dragon
Ocarina
Quest
of Time.
5?
Like, screw what?
You don't like Dragon Quest 5?
I never played that.
That game has a great childhood arc because your dad dies.
Tales of Graces? Get out of here with that child arc. I spend the grade every time to skip the child arc. Like,
for the record, Davey.
Yeah.
In whatever series we have of me playing terrible games, you know what the last game has to be in that, right?
Ocarina of Time?
No.
Lost Odyssey.
Lost Odyssey.
Oh man.
Good. At least two people got it.
That should just be a new feature on RPG Fan. Like, we'll run that by John and Tucker. We'll just be like, yeah, we need to do a new series called Josh Plays Your Favorite Game.
No, it should be Josh shits over everything that you love.
At every anime con I go to, they always do a panel called Your Favorite Anime Sucks, where people are just like, this is my favorite anime, and they reply with, here's why it's bad.
Yeah.
So Josh could do that.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll get lots of fans from doing that. Yes.
My favorite anime is just too easy. Like anytime someone I say like, here's why your favorite anime sucks. My favorite anime is Death Note. All they have to say is season 2.
Oh, wah wah.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get this back one more time. Do anybody have
No.
anything they want to talk about Terranigma? Because otherwise, Davey, why don't you give your wrap-up thoughts?
I think it's really clear that this is like a high-level, late-end SNS game, and it's like really pleasant to look at, and like half the OST is really good, so like an audio-visual thing. It's really nice for a retro game. It's fun. It's fun. It's just general. It's fun to move around, hit stuff with a stick.
Yeah,
That's how I feel about it.
it's always better when you hit things with sticks. What about you, Peter?
It's very pretty. Like
Yeah.
as a Super Nintendo game goes, like I would put this up in like the upper echelon of 16-bit games, and I really like the overworld music.
Yeah.
Like the second I walked out of the village, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is good.
And once
And yeah, like I said, interested to see where it goes. Anyway, sorry.
I was just gonna say once again, I muted the game.
Oh man, you
Why
have
do
to.
you do that?
You have to, before you move on to the next chapter, you have to listen to
Yeah.
overworld music because it's really good.
It's just that.
You can go ahead.
I was gonna say it's that
I was just
meaty.
gonna
I'm going.
say,
Okay, it's that meaty, that 16-bit sound that just totally brings you back. That a lot of people try to replicate now, but they're doing it with like higher quality sounds, which doesn't really it's not the same.
I honestly muted it because Mike and Marcos aren't on here, so I figured I wouldn't be outnumbered 3-1
wow.
about people only wanting to talk about music, so I thought I was safe. Apparently, I'm not.
I think outside of that,
You will
one
never
track,
be safe.
you can probably be safe muting like the rest of what you played so far because the dungeon music is pretty bad.
Yeah. Although I like listening to him flail with his sword spear.
Yeah, that's what you're into.
Yeah. What about you, Jesse? What do you think?
I'm enjoying it. Like I said, it's defying all of my expectations, or maybe I just didn't have expectations, so everything is new and fresh. And I also like that it's like seems like I can play it in short chunks. You know.
Yeah.
It's kind of easy to pick up and play. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's more so than. I think it's more because it's an action RPG. It feels like I can play just a short period of time and be done with it.
Yeah.
Whereas like Final Fantasy X is a really good example. I felt like I had to sit down for hours. And like when I was playing Last Story, I literally played it in chunks of like 6 hours. And thus far when I've done this, it's been like 15, 20 minutes. And then there's been a couple longer sessions, but it's been nice to kind of have that refreshing kind of take on how you're playing the game. For me personally, beyond anything with the game, which I'm liking the game thus far, I'm much more excited because I feel like this game is going to generate really good conversations. And so I'm really interested to see kind of our take on what's actually going on and trying to kind of unpack what is really happening at the core of the story.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited to make Ben Franklin jokes.
I'm calling BS on that.
Dog.
No, that's almost as bad as me saying in Trails that the dad was going to be the main character.
What? That you mean the main villain?
Yeah, the main villain. Yeah, sorry. Which I still am convinced in games 2 and 3 he is.
Goes back.
Wow.
Nobody's ever going to convince me otherwise.
Maybe when Cold Steel comes out this year, we can confirm that.
Oh yeah, that's in the same timeline, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm actually really curious about that game, even though because it looks like it fixes most of my problems with Charles in the Skies combat.
If they just sped up the combat, that's like the only thing that game needed for me.
Oh.
Come full circle.
Side
Oh,
note,
yeah,
that is my one complaint about Terranigma is I think he walks too slow.
Dude, just hold the run button down
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, once I figured out that there was a run button, I'm just like, oh wait, I never let go. I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah.
I can move.
I didn't know there was a run button.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
See? Yeah. Yep, and on that note, we are going to end the podcast before I embarrass myself further. Yeah. You of course are listening to Retro Encounter. That is episode 5-1, where we talked about Terranigma and lots of other things instead of Terranigma.
They're a ding dong.
Terracotta, Tamagotchi.
Terracotta pie. Hey, terracotta pie.
As always, you can send emails to retro@rpgfan.com. You can voice your thoughts on the boards. Davey has that wonderful Facebook thread somewhere. You can post on RPG Fans Facebook. You can always contact most of us through Twitter. I know you can't, Davey. Do Peter and Jesse, do you guys have Twitter accounts?
Yep, mine's the same as my username at I have fury.
Yeah, mine is at Woo Goes There, WOO.
I thought it was gonna be at woo. There it is.
That would have been a good one too.
And then, as always, I'm at JD Curry. We really appreciate you guys listening. We really appreciate your continued support. As always, you can go on to iTunes and review. That helps us go up higher in the listings so that other people can enjoy it as well. But that is going to do it for this podcast. Until next time.